So obviously we've had a bunch of Saudi stuff going on as well. The Esports World Cup has been looming large. And I wanted to just do a little bit catching up with what's been going on with that. And I did some reporting over on my Substack around this. Basically, it links to ESL. Now, in case you're unaware of the relationship that they sort of have, you've got the Esports World Cup. The Esports World Cup is run by the Esports World Cup Foundation, but the event and the tournaments are produced by ESL that are hired by the Esports World Cup because they're owned by the Saudi Arabian PIF too to essentially produce the events. And that's how they sort of, do these things. They are meant to be essentially two separate entities. And so there's been more layoffs. This is on July 28th, around about the same time the Yala story was kind of getting sculpted. There was the layoffs across ESL and Face It. Now the bulk of these are Face It apparently, and it even includes the integrity team, which is like the anti-cheat. So no doubt, I mean, just keep an eye on what your games are like in Face It moving forward, because that doesn't sound like a good thing. But whatever, maybe they've got some whiz kid or some new tech that I don't know about. But there was a couple of things here. This is when Cologne had just started, and basically it was like they didn't want to make a public announcement about the layoffs because one, it would distract from Cologne, and two, it would distract from the Esports World Cup that was ongoing. And the part that's relevant to where I want to go with this is a source said, as far as I'm aware, the decision to not make a public statement now is so they don't distract from the Esports World Cup. That has become their most important project, them being ESL in this instance. And so it's likely they don't want any negative news published while it's happening. Two sources we spoke to said that those affected by the layoffs would receive severance packages described as generous, but also the invitation to come back and work as a contractor for the Esports World Cup event. They stated that the EWC was the event that has the most budget allocated to it. So obviously, from ESL's perspective, the Esports World Cup is a really big deal. And there's this like kind of interesting component to it where it's like going, listen, if you don't make a fuss on the way out the door, we'll hire you back for the Esports World Cup. Yeah, you can come and work as a contractor. We'll get you in. How it works at the Esports World Cup, I'm told, is per tournament, and I'm working on another story about this at the moment, but per tournament, you have like a project manager essentially for that tournament, and they can hire contractors, admins, whatever, to kind of get it done. And so they've got a budget allocated, and that's how that works. And so obviously they can make the hiring decisions. So be good, be nice, play nice, and we'll bring you back for the Esports World Cup, which is going to represent a lot of money, particularly if you're no longer if you're no longer employed at the ESL Face It group. And there was two quotes in it that were just sort of like, again, I interviewed a bunch of people for this, but these are the two that really stood out. And it was, the original plan was to turn the company round and have it be profitable in 10 years, the source continued. When they saw how much money it was losing each year, that plan turned into 2 years. So 2026 is make or break. It's possible if these cuts don't work, they might consider selling parts of the business and only retaining the parts that work, digital platforms being the most profitable, because they have revenue streams, And then the other quote was, every decision we make at ESL now is about steering the company to stop losing money. Time's up. Time is up at ESL already. So just to make it abundantly clear, ESL, run by Saudi Games Group, owned by the Saudi Arabian state PIF, they took all that bag, dealt with all that shit. They laid off 15% of their workforce at the start of the year. There was also a bunch of big people just left as part of the mergers. They bought Vindex, gutted that. That's a fraction of what it's worth now. Esports Engine, gone. All of their NA rivals just taken out in the blink of an eye because they all love a bag too. And all with a view to being profitable by the end of 2026. And we know from their financial records, they are a long way away from that. So what happens? I mean, there's a realistic chance that ESL could get sold to somebody else as a separate part of the business. The production company ESL that does the EWC, well, now we realize, don't we? Now we realize why it's so important to them to maintain this relationship. I bet they make a fortune doing this. I bet this is the profitable tournament that they run, and everything else, not so much. It's why, by the way, they held on so long in Katowice. It's why Pro League's going back to Katowice, because they've got the infrastructure set up there, because they were going to Katowice for 10 years. They obviously had all the access and all the support from the local government. So it's been pretty wild. And I wanted to just kind of fold these things together. Maui Snake made a point where he basically talked about the Esports World Cup and Cologne. It was on his stream. I'll just play you the clip.
The trend that you're seeing amongst IEM events, including Katowice and Cologne, is that after the Saudi acquisition, they're angling it such that EWC is the premier event of the season. What is happening now is that they are trying to hire more people for the Esports World Cup. They are lessening the amount of resources on the other portions of the circuit, despite the legacy that they have. And what was once an ESL that championed Katowice and Cologne will henceforth champion Riyadh as the hub of esports.
You'll be able to find me saying this back when the takeover first happened. You'll see me in writing having said this. You'll see me on video having said this. What they wanted most of all was that, yeah, they wanted all roads to lead to Riyadh. They wanted Riyadh to be the hub for Premier Esports. They completely repurposed Dream League. Essentially, Dream League is the road to Riyadh in Dota 2 now. And then you have the Riyadh Masters as part of the Esports World Cup. And then, obviously, think about it from the Saudi perspective, right? It's antithetical to the Esports World Cup to have partners that run events that eclipse the Esports World Cup. And by the way, the Esports World Cup is a completely fucking soulless endeavor. We just did a review with the Four Horsemen of the documentary series, and I'm convinced they used fake crowd noise in some of those scenes. It sounded very stock to me. And also, they had to do that tight shot every time they had a crowd shot, because there was barely anyone there. And yet they were telling Arab news, 60,000 tickets sold just for the esports alone. It's like, it doesn't even feel that that's real spread out over the 10 weeks. So they then did that Superfans program I wrote about at the Substack, where organizations were like, oh, we're bringing in fans for you and we'll pay you. So the Saudi Arabian state pays for the fan to have flight there and back, shuttles to and from the hotel, and the hotel stay. And they're doing that for up to 60 fans per organization that attends the Esports World Cup. And that's just to diversify and fill out the crowd. And that's relevant because we're going to get to that in a moment. And the organizations are saying, oh, it's a giveaway. We're giving it away to our super fans. But then it isn't a super fan. It's not even a competition or a giveaway. They're handpicked. You don't enter a prize draw or whatever. They need to vet you. They need to make sure you'll actually go, because otherwise the organization doesn't get paid. If they say they're sending 20 and 18 turn up, they don't get paid. 20 is where the threshold for the payment starts. It's another incentive scheme. So that is the amount of money that is getting kicked around to make EWC look like a real event instead of a soulless corporate exercise. But I've got to say, I watched Cologne, and I think that the problem that happened on day one with the crowd mics, which ESL still haven't put any official word out except one statement to play.gg as to how that could happen, because the mics were placed not up in the ceiling, I wonder again if it was cutting corners and cutting finances. I also wonder, just about like the layoffs in general and how that's impacting behind the scenes quality. Because this isn't about the broadcast talent. The broadcast talent are pros. They're going to go out there and fucking put on a show and kill it every time. And it doesn't matter what's happening. They're just going to be unfazed and they're going to be professional and just do a good show. And they love the game. But the abuse Pimp got was people handing out flyers about Pimp, calling him the spicy F word, and like just all of this stuff. It was like, I don't know, shouldn't somebody take care of that? Shouldn't an ESL staff member notice that that's happening to one of the people they are contracting to do their show and deal with it? I mean, I don't know. And this is what I mean. There's a lack of attention to detail now because I think a lot of people are checked out because the reality is they think that ESL might be sold off or closed down or radically changed at the end of 2026. And again, I'm not talking about on-air talent. So that whole thing has just been ridiculous to witness. And I don't know. It's hard to judge just how good this cologne was as a spectacle compared to previous colognes because I was soured so much by the crowd and their behavior and Alex getting, racially abused in the HLTV podcast. I was so kind of out of sorts with that. I was kind of watching it through very sour eyes, which I don't like to do because obviously it's a prestige event. Jerky's Minion in the chat says it was the worst cologne he's been to, and he's been to 11 of them. So, which, by the way, he's not lying. Jerky loves to go to esports event. So if he says it wasn't great, I mean, again, I don't know. I wasn't there, and I watched from home, and there was a lot going on that soured it. But it also wouldn't surprise me if, like, the budgets had been rejigged around and ultimately EWC was a priority. Everything from every intersecting story around Saudi Arabia seems to suggest they want the Esports World Cup to be the big show in town. And so that brings us to the latest wave of talking points about the Esports World Cup. We did touch upon some of these in the Four Horsemen. There's just so many interlinking parts and interlinking little stories that it's kind of crazy. So the big talking point that they're putting out right now about the Esports World Cup and how great it is that you wouldn't know it was bad if you don't go there. And actually, Saudi Arabia is great, and you're ignorant if you've never been. You have an obligation to go before you speak out about Saudi Arabia. So this is Ralph Reichart, the guy who's always out there proselytizing for the Saudi Arabian state. And he used the phrase, come and see. Esports World Cup Foundation CEO Ralph Reichart has addressed criticism directed at the Esports World Cup over its ties with Saudi Arabia, encouraging skeptics to attend the event in person and form their own opinions. Speaking with the Esports Radar during the 2025 edition of the Esports World Cup, Rijkaard issued both a challenge and an invitation to those who have boycotted or criticized the event. It is only possible to build this because everyone works together, Rijkaard said. It is only possible because the players want to come. The clubs are supporting it. The game publishers are supporting it. The esports industry is supporting as a whole. And there are still obviously people out there who have a certain picture of Saudi Arabia and talk about it. The CEO refers to criticism faced by the EWC from human rights groups and parts of the gaming community with accusations of sports washing to improve the country's international image despite its human rights record. Reichert drew on his own experience, saying he once held similar assumptions about the country. I was at a similar position 5 years ago, so well, I didn't know about the country, he stated. You guys are here now. You could say firsthand. This is very different than you think, and I think experiencing is a much better strategy than judging. Concluding his remarks, the CEO encouraged greater engagement from the global esports community. We just want to invite everyone to come see some of the best esports of their lives and get a first-hand impression of the kingdom's hosting capabilities. And It's just mad that he is essentially saying, we will give you, if you come and visit a critic of Saudi Arabia, we will give you a curated experience that shows you we are so great and welcoming and warm. And then we want you to go back and tell everyone you were just an ignorant Westerner with your silly beliefs in personal freedom and human rights, and tell the world you were wrong and actually Saudi is a great place. And I used to be like you, ignorant. But now that I'm here, I know it's great. Can I have another meal? I can. I love it here. Now, it's so crazy, this framing, because they're just essentially saying, like, listen, it won't affect any of us here on this like little money-making island, this little business project we got going on. Anyone is literally welcome here. You can be gay, you can be trans, none of it matters. We won't do anything to you because of the optics. But that doesn't alter the statistical realities about the Saudi Arabian kingdom right now, with record numbers of executions for non-violent offences, women's rights activists being put in prison, gay people being tortured, persecuted, and having to flee to other countries so they're not put back in jail or murdered. So this whole come and see angle is crazy, but they're just rolling with it. And obviously, I wrote as part of that story about the super fans. That's all coming out of their hospitality budget. They hired an expert in corporate hospitality just to run the super fans project that they did. And so people did come and see. This is Tobias Schultz. He's been around esports a while, and he went out and basically he was one of these people that went to come and see. And, he's worked as an editor, a journalistic publication before. I would expect, I don't hate it, by the way, if you're a journalist and you want to go get to the crux of a matter and therefore you go out. But that's not the capacity within which you traveled there. He didn't declare it initially, but then added it to the article. He went as part of the superfans. He went as a Gen G superfan. So in other words, it wasn't Gen G who paid for him to be there. It was the Saudi Arabian state. And so some of the things he says in this article are mad, and they are the definition of useful idiocy. When we talk about useful idiots are people that hold genuinely bad opinions, right, about something a regime is doing. They express those opinions, they run defense for that regime or that political party, and it's completely free. They're doing it. They're not being paid to do it. They're not being forced to do it. They're not being coerced to do it. They just do it. And that's what a useful idiot is. I had this argument with a few people, back when it was like Benny Johnson and fucking Tim Pool, and they got exposed as like, oh, a Russian company was giving them money and that company had some money put into it from the Kremlin. I don't think they were ever told what to say. I think they just legitimately say those dog shit things by themselves. They're useful idiots. And so anyway, this was sort of a mind-blowing read. He said here, I am aware my presence at the event may draw criticism, especially given ongoing debates about sports washing, human rights, and the geopolitical ambitions driving Saudi Arabia's investment in esports. These critiques are valid and must remain part of the conversation. Yet, as both a researcher and former journalist, I believe it is essential to experience these developments firsthand. Esports is becoming a truly global phenomenon, and understanding its dynamics requires field observation rather than distant theorizing. There is also an observer effect to acknowledge. By being present, we inevitably become part of the story we analyze, but without engaging directly, we risk misreading both the ambitions behind such events and the transformation that they signal for the industry. Esports is no longer concentrated in its historical hubs of Europe, North America, and East Asia. The Middle East and increasingly Africa are emerging as new players. Saudi Arabia's strategy is deliberate. The Esports World Cup is not just a tournament, but a signal of ambition, part of a broader effort to integrate esports into national visions for entertainment, technology, and cultural influence. From the outset of this trip, the global reach of the event was visible. On my flight to Riyadh, fans discussed League of Legends strategies and wore Cloud9 and 100 Thieves jerseys. Do you think maybe they were part of the super fans too? They weren't just organically there, were they? Fucking hell. It reminded me of travelling to the UEFA Euro finals in Paris, yet the atmosphere was distinct. Esports fans tend to be globally connected, diverse, and despite their passion, less confrontational than football crowds. The Esports World Cup's integration into Riyadh's entertainment district is striking. Unlike fenced-off mega events like the Olympics or the FIFA World Cup, the tournament is woven into the city's urban life. The fan zones, the stages, and commercial spaces are not separated. They merge with broader entertainment offerings. This has a dual effect. It normalizes esports as part of everyday leisure, and it exposes the Saudi public directly to esports values such as competition, community, and global connectivity. But this also raises a deeper question. Do these events transmit values that can lead to moral and cultural change? Or is esports, like so many other sports, ultimately apolitical entertainment that rarely transforms societal structures? It's not that they're apolitical, mate. It's that they get hijacked and used for specific political purposes by the state. The answer is neither simple nor one-dimensional, but the question deserves to be asked as esports integrates more deeply into local and global cultures. The scale of the event is impressive, but the fan culture still feels in development. Oh, yeah, I'll say. The atmosphere leaves room to grow. It is not yet the intense organic fandom seen in older sports or even some grassroots esports scenes. Bro, some of these Saudi Arabian soccer games get 200 fucking fans in stadiums designed to hold tens of thousands. It's got a long way to go. Esports is going to struggle. Audiences are diverse. Honor of Kings draws significant Chinese crowds, notably including a large female audience. Call of Duty appeals strongly to Americans, while legacy titles like StarCraft, once central to esports identity, receive comparatively little attention. These shifts highlight changing hierarchies of titles and demographics in global esports. This expansion also occurs amid what many call an esports winter, a contraction characterized by sponsorship withdrawals, declining valuations, and the consolidation or sale of major esports organizations. Saudi Arabia's timing is not coincidental. While other regions retrench, these investments provide capital and visibility at a critical moment. For some teams and tournament operators, the Esports World Cup serves as a lifeline, a way to maintain operations and recalibrate for new markets. At the same time, Saudi Arabia is not simply filling a vacuum. It is taking risks and actively innovating. Features such as the new Teamfight Tactics 4v4 mode and the Tribal Trophy system are examples of experimentation that push competitive formats forward. Doesn't explain why it has to be at the Esports World Cup. Couldn't we do it somewhere else? Can we experiment anywhere? Pretty sure we can. But okay. This willingness to innovate is notable precisely because many established regions have become more cautious and conservative during the downturn. The EWC also evokes memories of the World Cyber Games, which once united the global scene under Samsung sponsorship, a historical moment that in hindsight should have raised red flags about corporate overreach and sustainability, yet undeniably shaped early esports culture. Labeling Saudi Arabia's investments as sports washing oversimplifies a complex issue. Traditional sports washing is largely symbolic, hosting high-profile events or acquiring teams to improve reputation. Esports, however, is digital, networked, and structurally different. Saudi Arabia's approach is not just about hosting, it embeds itself within governance, tournament operations, and industry infrastructure. This is evidenced not only in the Esports World Cup, but also in Saudi Arabia's upcoming role as the host of the Olympic Esports Series, further consolidating its position as a central actor in shaping the competitive gaming landscape on a global scale. This deeper integration creates something distinct, which can be termed esports washing. It is not merely reputation management, but a strategic repositioning of esports itself, influencing game ecosystems, funding flows, and even online discourse. And because esports lives in digital networks, this influence operates globally and persistently, rather than locally and temporarily, as with traditional sports events. This phenomenon is also deeply connected to what scholars describe as the platformization of society. Saudi Arabia is not only investing in events, but embedding itself in the very platforms through which esports is organized, monetized, and experienced. This is a textbook example of a platform takeover, gaining influence at the infrastructural level rather than only through surface associations. It parallels strategies seen in major Western technology companies such as Meta or Apple, which have sought to control the ecosystems within which users interact, create content, and transact. Saudi Arabia's approach applies this logic to esports, reshaping not only competitive gaming, but the digital spaces in which gaming culture itself unfolds. Recognizing this difference does not absolve ethical concerns, it actually intensifies them. It calls for new frameworks to analyze digital soft power and platform level influence in global esports, as existing models borrowed from traditional sports are insufficient for this evolving reality. Those two paragraphs are a bit of a word salad. And ultimately, what he's done there is he said it's not like sports washing. It's done differently, but for the same stated purpose: control and influence. You didn't need to crack the thesaurus out for that one. So he goes on. Critique is essential, but we must also be cautious of moral imperialism. Western discourse often assumes its ethical frameworks are universal, framing events like the EWC primarily as moral crises. Yet this overlooks local contexts and aspirations and risks replicating post-colonial power dynamics, telling emerging regions how they should engage with global culture without listening to their perspectives. So apparently what you're meant to do is you're meant to get round the table with human rights violators and you go, I value human rights and I would rather your state, like, we will agree to attend your events in future if you simply stop killing gay people and oppressing women. And they go, but we've got a religious doctrine that tells us we have to do those things. So now what? And I'm meant to go, well, I suppose, look, if you can make a compromise on the women and let them drive now, I'll give up the gays. And we go, deal. We shake hands and we betray a marginalized group so we can all make money. Yeah, I'm good, actually. I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to trade off people's lives like, well, we give women cars and the right to vote, but we still stone gay people to death. I'm not really about that. And I will tell regions, emerging or otherwise, if you persecute people on that basis, you are evil. Like, sorry, I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do. I don't have a post-colonial mindset. I know I'm British. We did have that empire and everything. Um, but it's not about that. I assure you, Tobias, it's not about that. It's just about very clear and obvious rights and wrongs. And I also don't think it's an excuse when you say, yeah, well, look, I mean, Saudi aren't the worst offenders. Well, okay. So now what? No, it's just wild. So anyway, yeah. This doesn't mean abandoning critique. It means complicating it, holding both truths, acknowledging human rights concerns while also interrogating whether Western criticisms inadvertently mirror historical asymmetries of power. And the presupposition there is that me, a Westerner, sort of has some sort of power over Saudi Arabia, the oil state that can buy everything that I care about, everything that I value. Saudi Arabia has a stake in. I don't have any power or any influence, which is why they haven't adopted a single, any of our values. Women might get these little crumbs from the table of equal rights, but it's like we were talking about 100 years ago with the suffragette fucking movement or something. You know what I mean? It's like it should just be apparent that women are equal, different but equal, right? Like, it just seems so easy to get to mentally, and I don't understand the arguments to the contrary. The asymmetry of power is everyone in esports is poor and incompetent, and Saudi Arabia's money offers them the opportunity to be rich and incompetent, but incompetent without consequence. All they have to do is everything Saudi Arabia says and wants. And all they have to do is go out publicly and write fucking articles like this. The dominance of Saudi Arabia in esports today also reflects a failure of others to act. Europe, once a pioneer, has largely retreated. With few exceptions, there has been little government support, minimal strategic investment, and limited innovation. I mean, I don't want government support. Why has it got to be contingent on government? Major players like EFG and Freaks for You have been sold or consolidated. Meanwhile, Asia views the EWC as an opportunity rather than a controversy. Yes, quite famously, some nations in Asia also not as hung up on human rights as other parts of the world, yeah. And Africa may increasingly see Saudi Arabia as a credible partner for developing its own esports and digital ecosystems. Yep, that's soft power. This is partly a result of historical memory. Western nations, particularly in Europe, still carry the baggage of colonialism, which shapes how partners. By the way, the word colonialism is used way too much in this article. It's completely irrelevant. Which shapes how partnerships are perceived in many emerging nations. Saudi Arabia, despite its own complexities, does not evoke the same colonial legacy and can therefore appear as a less paternalistic and more pragmatic collaborator. In this light, Europe's moral critique risks appearing detached when paired with its lack of strategic engagement. It leads to an uncomfortable but unnecessary question. Is Europe critiquing what it failed to build? Why would that be a problem? The Esports World Cup is not only about esports, but it is about the future of digital society. The same shifts in power and culture seen here are playing out across all digital platforms and virtual communities. If we aim to build a globalized, safe, and inclusive digital space, we must ensure that inclusion extends to the very discussions shaping it. Excluding certain regions or dismissing them outright risks deepening divides rather than bridging them. Esports, like sport, may never be fully profitable in conventional terms, but its cultural and social impact is undeniable. Saudi Arabia recognized this potential when others hesitated. It's almost as if they have unlimited money. The challenge now is to engage with this reality critically, neither uncritically endorsing nor reflexively dismissing it, but understanding what it means for global esports governance and the values we want to embed in digital play. Well, you remember there was that big Russian event that was literally run by the Russian government. They had a Dota 2 tournament. Where's all the articles about how I should go to the Kremlin and see for myself? I should go to Moscow and see for myself. If we aren't allowed to exclude certain regions, why did we ban Russians? We banned Russian non-combatants from competing in esports tournaments. Where was Tobias's article then? Don't recall it. It seems that the only people that do bad things, that you have to forgive for bad things and think about how those bad things might not be bad, it's only the ones that are giving the money away. Considering there's been a push to ban Israeli people from esports events, particularly if they've served in the IDF, I find this staggering. I find this a staggering article to write. For scholars and industry professionals alike, the task is to engage critically yet constructively with this complexity. The Esports World Cup reveals not just where competitive gaming is today, but where global digital culture is heading. Beyond the analysis, this trip also provided an important opportunity for dialogue and reflection with others in the field, engaging in conversations on site, including with Ralph Reichart, of course. And you'll see all of these people that all have links to it down here until, yeah, LinkedIn makes me log in. Everyone basically saying, wow, this is great, incredible, really thoughtful article, man. It's really like thoughtful, bro. It's really like balanced. You've actually brought up colonialism with the context of the Saudi Arabian state multiple times, even though it's completely irrelevant to Europe's history. But yeah, it's really good, bro. It's really good. Yeah, fucking colonialism, man. It's wild. And remember, all it took to get him to write that was a free fucking holiday. There's this as well in Forbes. I know Mike Stubbs, colleague of mine, former colleague. They wrote an article about this new global sports conference and how it's the best place for deals. Esports' biggest deals are getting made in Riyadh right now. If you want a bag, you have to be in Riyadh. That's ultimately what this article says. The new look at this opening line. The new global sport conference is quickly becoming the place where the biggest deals in gaming and sports are happening. After just a couple of iterations, so in other words, it's had two of them. After just a couple of iterations, the conference has already been responsible for some major deals you will have heard of, with the likes of the Savvy Games Group and the Antic Partnership and the deal to bring chess to the Esports World Cup, both advancing thanks to the conference. And all it is, by the way, all these deals are all the same. We, the Saudi Arabian state, would like to procure what you have culturally, and all you have to do is just assimilate with our values and say we're great. And everyone goes, yeah, no problem. I'll take that. Now, the conference is set to return for its third year, and it looks set to be bigger and better than ever. Don't know if you need to editorialize, Mikey. What's better in this context? It's redundant. It's a redundant. It's not even a redundancy. It just shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be saying it looks to be better. Better how? Better in what way? What's better about it? With over 1,500 industry players heading to Riyadh during the final weekend of the Esports World Cup, as well as the pure networking side of the event, an extensive schedule of panels, roundtables, and talks from industry legends will offer exclusive insights into their fields. This year, the likes of former FC CEO and EA Sports executive Peter Moore, yeah, you know, that fucking wicked ethical company, EA Sports, gouging kids with fucking loot boxes every single fucking year. Chess grandmaster Magnus Carlsen will say anything for a bag. And world-renowned game developer Hideo Kojima will booze and schmooze with anyone to stay in the spotlight. Will all be on hand to share their knowledge with attendees while furthering the conversation for their industries. The full speaker list also includes other major players within the world of gaming, esports, and sport to look to the future of these three industries. For the first time, we're expanding our horizons beyond the short and mid-term to examine what these industries might look like by 2050. Through keynote insights, high-level panels, and exclusive fireside conversations, the program will explore the future of game IPs, the intersection of sport and esports, the role of government and global institutions, and the transformative impact of mobile AI and digital infrastructure. It will likely be a while before non-attendees get wind of the deals that will be negotiated in Riyadh in a few weeks' time, and some may never hit the headlines. But the conference's legacy will no doubt be felt for many years across the gaming, esports, and sports industries. And with more attendees than ever, this event really could shape the future of esports for years to come. Was this a paid-for article? Or is this just more useful idiocy? There's nothing complicated about what happens at these events. Right. You take a room, a big room. I've spoken at many of these conferences. And you book people who like the sound of their own voice, which is why I've spoke at many of these conferences, right? Everyone loves to just gas on about how fucking great they are and how much they know, how they're a fucking expert in their field, and tell some funny fucking stories and get some applause at the end and go, wow, you're a really good public speaker. I had no idea. You'll have to come back next year, right? And you get a free dinner and you get a free bar. Sometimes you get a free hotel. And you get to network. And it's so everyone thinks they're the smartest motherfucker there. And we all wander off and we all, oh, Richard, great to meet you. I've been actually thinking, I've got this project, right? And it's really, and you chop it up with some total arsehole stranger who's going to promise you the fucking world. You exchange business cards and then you never see this cunt again. You call him, what about that thing? Oh, I just didn't work out, didn't fill out, we couldn't secure the funding. The only difference about this one is it just goes, listen, I can connect you to the Saudi Arabian royal family. Prince Faisal loves this stuff. And you go, oh, cool. Yep, he's got access to the PIF. Anything gaming related, bosh. You just get $1 million. Oh, okay, yeah, sounds good. That's it. There's no great science, no mad thing happening here. But they're talking about it in this Forbes article, they're talking about it. Like it's the fucking, like some sort of Illuminati all coming together. The fucking, a super team. A cross between the Illuminati and the Avengers all meet up to save the future of esports, sports, and entertainment by 2050. Like, these are some of the speakers that are there. Our friend Ralph Reichart again. Love hearing from him. Prince Faisal, Prince Fahad bin Mansour bin Nasser Al Saud, who's the president of the Saudi G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance. The CSO from Sony, because remember, Sony are founding partners with the Esports World Cup. That's why they made that dog shit documentary. Brian Ward, the CEO of the Savvy Games Group. Magnus Carlsen there. Oh, I'm wearing jeans. Jens Hilgers from Bitcraft, one of the original money webs in esports, paled into comparison now. Bruce Stein, the co-founder of Axiomatic, which obviously is the stakeholder in Team Liquid. And then just a bunch of people from the Esports World Cup Foundation are drone on about how the Esports World Cup is the best thing ever. It's pretty good. There was also, by the way, I don't even know where you fold this in, but there was also another deal, right? Because, right, you remember when I wrote that article? And it was about the StarLadder acquisition, and StarLadder basically got bought, right? And they did, and they didn't disclose that Ralph Reichart was on the board of the company that was doing the acquisition. So there it is. StarLadder were acquired by Nodwin Gaming. So Nodwin are like the people that used to run, like essentially other events in India, primarily like DreamHack and stuff like that. There it is. That's the official post about it. So Ralph Reichart, just an executive that wasn't mentioned publicly. And I was like, that's a bit weird. And then Nodwin Gaming partners with the Esports World Cup Foundation. India-based esports and gaming company will handle the media rights and sales across all of South Asia. That's interesting. I'm sure it's all just a coincidence. There's no ties, there's no connections whatsoever. It's just business. I also thought this was funny, right? Just to kind of show you how it's not just that all of these things are all entwined. It's entwined in a way that is going to give Saudi Arabians a disproportionate advantage. Of course, that is baked into everything they're doing. And so this is just brilliant. Just brilliant. Remember when I told you when Falcon signed Kyosuke, it didn't matter if he was the best player, the best fit. It wasn't about that. They just knew it was going to be insanely popular. Everybody wants to watch this kid and see if he's going to be the next Dunk, right? And that is more important for the purposes of Falcons than if they actually win anything. Well, just in this short here, Falcons top out the ESL's club incentive update. Now, you remember the club incentive is if you get viewership on your games, you get awarded more money for it. And the more you have in terms of viewership, the more money you get. So they go out and they buy Kyosuke. And because of that, they were averaging 479,088 concurrent viewers during their tournament run. And because of that, they're at the top of the incentive structure, which means they get nearly $400,000 back. And the people paying that are ESL, owned by the Savvy Games Group, who are funded by the Saudi Arabian PIF. Not to mention, as I found out when I made a flippant remark, like it was just lol. No, it was actually the Obama medal meme. I posted the Obama medal meme when the Esports Awards gave Falcons Organization of the Year. And I got bought into shit. It's the only time I've ever just had to turn my Twitter off and just go protected. Because it's not that they were saying hurtful things and I was there staring at the screen. You were wrong about cyberbullying, Tyler, the creator. You were wrong. I can't just walk away. It wasn't that. It was like literally breaking Twitter. I was getting spammed so much, spammed in my DMs that were open. And so, but you probably don't know this, but you get kicked out your Twitter account if you get too many fucking things all happening at once. You have to re-log in. It checks if you're a fucking person. It just, everything starts to break. But do you think there's going to be an investigation into the veracity of that number? Nah, of course. No, it's just the Kyosuke effect. Falcons are a very, very popular organization. Certainly 120,000 more popular than Spirit that have Donk, the current best player in the world. It's just a mess. The whole thing's a mess. And as I said, it's a mess that just is, everything's all intersecting in a way to try and make every other event on the calendar look not as important as the Esports World Cup. That everything that happens at the Esports World Cup, including that conference, the Esports Awards, that's all way more important. It doesn't matter that there's 400 people in a crowd wearing gutters and that's it. And they don't even know what's going on. They don't even follow the game. They've just been told to stand there. Right? It doesn't matter. You have, this is the way that we've crafted esports ever since we've let the Saudis in. It really is all roads leading to Riyadh. And it's so many different, like, layered factors. And with ESL potentially financially struggling, maybe getting sold, maybe getting huge cuts to just how they operate, it's going to be really, really hard. And yeah, I don't know. We're approaching the end stage a lot faster than I thought we would. And remember, by 2030, the Saudis are meant to have everything they want in place, up and running. And I just don't know if esports tournaments outside of the EWC is going to be of any interest to them anymore. And with everything else that's happening in esports, with, like I say, we've got layoffs at G2 that haven't been announced yet. Bayes Esports, that analytics company, completely closed down. We got this thing at Yala. There's some other weird shit going on with a bunch of companies. People are chasing down money. Sponsors are pulling out. It's like, it's Saudi or bust. And if Saudi don't give a fuck about anything other than the Esports World Cup, that's what esports will be. And it will be only that, which will just mean there'll be nothing to talk about, nothing to watch, nothing to work if you're morally, compromised like that. Like, we're just gonna we'll go back to like some dark shit online era in most games. Prize money will be down, interest will be down. I hope it was all worth it, guys. All the people that have fucking got the bag and done this to esports. I hope it's all worth it, but we shall see. And yeah, TI's coming now, so I can't wait to read all of the threads for people attacking PGL. Why did Valve hire them? I couldn't hear sound for 2 seconds. He-Man. I don't know why I'm doing a Skeletor voice. Sorry. So yeah, we're not in a good place, guys. We're not in a good place. And probably gets worse before it gets better.